I don't know if you've seen any red carpets lately, but I have this weird impression that celebrities are slowly morphing into each other now. I think for a while now there has been a popular face. It's this very distinct look that I think a lot of influencers have, but also maybe it can be described as an iPhone face. I mean, if you've seen any of the art that AI has been spewing out, that's basically that face. Small upturned nose, big cat eyes in a way, big lips, chiseled cheekbones and jaw, thin neck. As I said, I think it started off with mostly influencers, but we see it in pop culture now as well. Movies, TV, interviews, red carpets, everyone looks a little bit similar. Beauty standards regarding facial features have always been a thing. This is nothing new. As always, on this channel, we go back to the roots, baby, and beauty standards have existed probably as long as humanity itself. And those standards were never universal. You can argue that the beauty standard was youth, you can argue that the beauty standard was health, but a lot of beauty standards, especially when it comes to someone's facial features, are actually difficult to explain. We don't know why people changed their minds all of a sudden and went for high foreheads or rounded cheeks and then hollow cheekbones. These things change and they have nothing to do with either youth nor health. So they have always been flowing. For example, in the Victorian era, women that were considered great beauties often had classically inspired features similar to ancient sculptures. So they would have long, straight noses, small lips, soft chins, and round eyes. And then eras like the Baroque era were all about round faces and everything was round and soft. You would have rosy cheeks, you would have high foreheads. Sometimes it's difficult to pinpoint what exactly people considered beautiful in particular eras, but I think a good hint is to take a look at how they manifested those beauty standards through art. So mainly how they stylized their portraits. For example, a lot of Victorian portraits gave women big round eyes, and then we compare those portraits to photographs of actual historical people that were portrayed and they look nothing like that. So in real life, that's not the case that every Victorian person ever had round eyes. However, despite those beauty standards being very prominent in art, in real life, people based their idea of someone's beauty mostly off their character, their behavior, their posture, their manners. Like a lot of renowned beauties from the past were often described like this. Her mouth was a bit too wide and then her eyes were set too deep, but her every move was filled with such sweetness and grace that everyone considered her a great beauty. And even if we do look at people that were universally considered beautiful in particular eras, within the same era you have a lot of different beauty ideals and different features that people found attractive. And I think it also proves the point that beauty back then was more about how you carried yourself. Obviously, it helped if you happened to possess the fashionable features, but also it wasn't like a given that you would be considered beautiful if you had those features. You had to have that extra something. And on the other hand, if you did not possess the fashionable features, but you did have that factor, you would also be considered beautiful. So it seemed much more lenient in the way we described people. Now for something more joyful. This video is sponsored by June's Journey. June's Journey is a hidden object mystery game set in the 1920s. The main character, June, is trying to solve a family mystery. There is a lot of stuff you can do in the game. There is not just the hidden object games, there is also your little island that you get to decorate, you get an album full of stickers, you can participate in challenges with your friends, you can have clubs with your friends as well, which I do. But now for something even more exciting. June is joined by the Hercule Poirot, the legendary fictional detective. So you get new mysteries, new rewards, new island decorations, all based on Agatha Christie's novels, available from April till June. I am literally so excited about this. Hercule Poirot is actually one of my favorite fictional characters, and June's Journey has always reminded me of Agatha Christie's novels, so this is a perfect collab. I mean, June's Journey has always delivered with the vintage aesthetic, from the plot, to the costumes, to even things like props and decorations. So download June's Journey using the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen. And that is often the case in real life. I mean, there are people that are considered universally beautiful by most, but there are also cases when it's difficult to say what makes a person beautiful in our eyes. Like, people can agree that someone is attractive, but they don't maybe possess the fashionable face at all. You know, sometimes you see someone in the pictures and you're like, okay, and then you meet them in real life and you're like, okay, that's what people were talking about. It's the charisma. It's about people's energy that they bring into the room when they walk in. When we talk about how unified beauty standards have become, we often mention and bring up the 90s, because the 90s seem to have done a great job at showcasing a wide variety of faces, but also faces that looked normal. Every time I see photos of 1990s actresses, I go like, wow, they look like normal people. They look like I could have known them. They're not this unattainable alien beauty that we see nowadays in the media. There was just something so casual about them. They looked like people you went to school with. And this girl next door look was popularized by actresses such as Julia Stiles, Drew Barrymore, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Alicia Silverstone, Melissa Joan Hart. But while their faces may have looked different from one another and they carried a more casual type of beauty, they still represented a similar beauty ideal. The friendly looking girl who's white and skinny. It is no coincidence that in the Western world, until fairly recently, thin lips were the beauty ideal. Even in the 90s, celebrities were mostly white. The modeling industry only had a couple of famous non-white names. And while entertainment seemed to allow a bigger variety, A-list celebrities were still very homogeneous when it comes to their looks. Nowadays, we finally do have a variety of skin colors, ethnicities, and sizes, and yet it seems that beauty standards are narrower than before. We idolize the plump, big lips that women of color often possess, and at the same time, they still feel pressured to get nose jobs to better adhere to the very Eurocentric beauty template. On the other hand, having work done is only socially acceptable when it's done well. So when it goes unnoticed, when it's barely noticeable, or when it looks natural even though the person's like 20 years older than they look. For example, Kris Jenner has received a lot of praise for her recent facelift because she managed to avoid this uncanny stretched out look that bothers us so much. And her surgeon, Dr. Stephen Levine, is also speculated to be behind Lindsay Lohan's face. I think she went through the phase of, you know, her natural young looks, then trying to get the looks improved, but maybe failing a little in terms of looking natural, and then going back to this fresh, youthful look that apparently Dr. Stephen Levine gave to her. But when we notice plastic surgery, or when it goes wrong, the celebrities face incredible criticism. Part of it could be that we get this uncanny feeling looking at them, and that shock leads to over-the-top reactions. Part of it could be our parasocial relationship with them, because we feel like we've been lied to, we feel disillusioned. As long as face augmentations remain almost invisible, undetectable, we feel like the celebrity is real and natural and a bit more like us peasants. And when we notice that they got work done, it's like they were hiding a secret from us and they breached our trust. There's this interview with Dr. Stephen Levine that he has done during COVID, and I find the point that he raises very interesting. The volume of calls, the level of intensity is probably higher during COVID than not COVID. Almost every virtual consult ends with, how quickly can you do this? They want to take advantage of this perceived downtime. It seems like the perfect time to recover from a procedure like a facelift, where you need at least 2 weeks to lay low. I think the requests for face, neck, eyes, and nose are constant at the moment because people are looking at themselves on Zoom all day, analyzing their angles. This is a really interesting point. I'm not sure if that's what drove people to get surgery during COVID rather than just being out of the spotlight. But I never thought about how seeing yourself on camera all the time can affect your welfare in a way. I definitely see this tendency intensifying during COVID. Like, a lot of famous celebrities entered the pandemic and then left it looking completely different. And doing procedures during lockdown allowed them to avoid the scrutiny of the media. An argument I see a lot online is that commenting on these tendencies is somehow misogynist, because obviously we mostly pick apart women for the choice to have work done. And we shouldn't be picking apart women's bodies, and we shouldn't be criticizing their choices. This is all fair, but I feel like this is a way to shut down anyone that raises concerns about what culture is doing to us. we don't exist in a vacuum, and the world that we live in, especially the media we consume, is heavily calculated. It would be naive to pretend otherwise. To believe that famous people look the way they do only because of personal preference. That's just naive. Halle Berry has talked about the pressures that she, as an aging woman, faces in Hollywood. When you see everybody around you doing it, you have those moments when you think, to stay alive in this business, do I need to do the same thing? I won't lie and tell you that those things don't cross my mind, because somebody is always suggesting it to me. You know, if you just did a little bit of this and that, lift this up, then this would be a little bit better. It's almost like crack that people are trying to push on you. That's what I feel like. I think it's a really interesting point, because it isn't like celebrities are just sitting, sipping on coffee at home and scrolling Instagram, and then they're like, maybe I should get a facelift. No, famous people are constantly surrounded by dozens of other people that work with them. I don't think we realize how celebrities function. It's never just an empty room that you enter and talk to them. There is like their assistant, their second assistant, their cook, their manager, their stylist, their makeup artist, their hairstylist, their photographer, their two fake friends, all of which possibly have an opinion on their looks. And even if they're not like, you look kind of ugly, you should do something about it. It's all those subtle suggestions that must really get into people's heads. Oh, I heard this and that just did this recently and she looks really good. It doesn't have to be personal. But when you're constantly surrounded by this culture of you always have to improve your looks, it really has to be so debilitating to just exist in that as a woman. And also, we have to remember that those celebrities' looks are making people money. So everyone is really invested in how you look and how you present yourself. The second you start aging, the management becomes more and more aggressive in demanding you get work done, because in their eyes, an older client means less work, and less work means less money. It's simple as that. I've noticed that especially with child actors or people that were popular very young, they have had a lot of work done and they look completely different to what they did when they were much younger, possibly because they built their careers on their youth. So the older they get, the more they feel like they have to fight to still be relevant. Personally, for me, the great tragedy of modern Hollywood is the death of droopy eyelids. Upper blepharoplasty has robbed us of so many cool, unique looks with hooded eyes, but then those don't really affect a person's ability to act, unlike a lot of other procedures. And I think that's one argument that I see people raise, that we lose something with all the cosmetic procedures when it comes to acting.
I miss faces doing what faces are supposed to do. Movies made in the early 2000s and before then just hit different, because everyone's face looked different. There were different proportions, different teeth, different shaped noses, different skin textures, different ways of moving foreheads while crying. So many foreheads without Botox, which freezes movement.
And I 100% agree. A big part of cinema and TV is the illusion that you're experiencing real people, real emotions. I mean, even if there are dragons or aliens involved, we are invested because we believe that those are real emotions, those are real people that go through things. And there's just something uncanny about seeing faces that don't even move anymore, because we hear the emotions, but we don't get to see them on screen anymore. And for some, it may be reflection of what they're seeing in real life, because maybe they know a lot of people that have had those procedures done. But for a lot of viewers, especially those living in places where those procedures are not yet that common, it just feels like something's really off. As always, women seem to be scrutinized about this way more than men. I think there is actually multiple reasons for this. One of them is, of course, sexism, because we're always much more critical of a woman's aging looks than men's. An aging male actor is called a silver fox, and he's actually getting better with age. He's aging like fine wine. They mature. Whereas when women age, they get saggy and they just get old and expire. But also, on the other hand, it seems like for men, there isn't a set standard of what a face should look like. And I think this is why men nowadays just end up looking really strange and really uncanny. They don't have the same face, they just all have one thing in common, and that is looking weird. Some of them try to get inspired by the female face template and get lip filler, which often ends up in throwing their facial proportions completely off. Some try the cat eye pull, but again, it's not an especially naturally masculine feature, so it looks a bit off. Some do facelifts, but it seems like the plastic surgeons have worked on the female face so much that they just copy and paste those looks for men, and again, it doesn't work. Something's really wrong, and I think that leads us to believing that Jim Carrey is cloned. They just look off. Because men feel like they should do something. Men feel like maybe aging is not a good thing, maybe they're gonna get less work, but they just don't really know what, and then they go to those plastic surgeons and they're like, you know what, I had Lindsay Lohan here last week, we could try that. The most annoying result of this unification of beauty standards for me is the effect it has on regular people. And I don't actually mean regular people going like, I should look like that, I look crap, my self-esteem is down and I feel pressured to alter my looks. No, I mean the way they see beauty in their heads has changed. There is this expectation in the media right now that everyone should look the same. Everyone should adhere to this beauty standard, and it's especially visible when someone does not fit that standard, when someone has crooked teeth, when someone has wrinkles, or God forbid, when someone is 40 and does not look 25. The comments are vicious. We, and especially the younger generations, are so out of touch with what normal people look like that we no longer register it as a norm. That's the thing I dislike about this the most, is that the beauty standard has replaced normality. And I think that's not cool, man. That's not cool. It's also quite ableist. But then the most ironic part is that us freaking out that someone has had work done is probably not helping either, because we continue picking apart famous people's looks, and then the media continues scrutinizing how someone's aging or how someone's looks change. I genuinely don't know what the right approach is, to be honest, because if we don't talk about it, then soon we will assume that people should look like this by default, and everyone ends up with the same face anyway. And what I think is especially dangerous is that, as I said, beauty standards ebb and flow, they change a lot, and they change fast. If we choose to follow them, we are at risk of getting procedures that will, age badly within a couple of years. Some of those changes are reversible, some of those changes are temporary, but believing that you can just achieve the ultimate beautiful face and be done with it is very naive, is unrealistic. I mean, even the Kardashians are sort of morphing into one person. That's how you know we have a problem. I have to say, I find it really refreshing to see European actors in comparison to the American ones. I'm not sure if they just have less work done or if they do it really well. I don't think so. But a lot of British, French, Scandinavian actors and actresses, they just look a lot more natural. There must be a lot less pressure to get work done in Europe, I think. They have wrinkles, they have saggy eyelids, they have loose neck skin. And guess what? They still look beautiful. And they look their age, which is, again, refreshing to see. I don't know why it feels so comforting to see them. It's kind of like there's still hope for us, and that hope comes in resisting societal pressures. So maybe the best way to fight the unified beauty standard, the one face that everyone is having, is just by rejecting it ourselves and then hoping that others will do the same. I don't know. Download June's journey using the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen.